Hey everybody, Mike Toy, Bonsai, Boise. So it's officially fall now, and all the outside trees are going to sleep. So I'm focusing on tropicals. Thought I would give you a tour of the grow tent setup and take a look at a good handful of the tropical trees. So I go upstairs to the bonus room where I've got everything set up now. It's not a glamorous setup by any means. There's the grow tent. And I've just got a little table set up, backdrop, all my various bonsai tools and whatnot, and a TV so I can watch my favorite shows. Lights, camera, and action. It's where all the magic happens. So let's take a look inside the grow tent. It's always nice this time of year when it gets cold to just open it up and it's kind of a little tropical oasis in here. Here's a look at all the trees. I try to group them somewhat together. So like all my fusions are right there. And some of the ficuses are up top here. The ficuses and bonsai pots are up top. And the back is my main ficus fusion, kind of separate from the other fusions. It's my oldest one. Got my fan going. There's a few things I did differently this year, which I'll show you. Down below, I'm trying to keep all the cuttings in one general spot next to my bush to bonsai one there, my big one. That's the second one I did. Got some random cuttings and other things that are still very young in development. And then just a whole bunch of miscellaneous. Gets kind of mixed up from there. Got some lemon trees, some podocarpus, lots of ficus, Scheffleras, some pomegranate cuttings, lemon cypress. So in this video, I'm going to pull out a few here and a few there. It's impossible to do them all, but pull them out, put them on the table, and take a closer look at just kind of a random mix. Some that I've had for a while, some that are brand new, some that I think are cool, but maybe aren't that exciting otherwise, some that might be exciting. Here's something I did different. So I put those same grates that I use up top there, I put those on the ground because inevitably water starts to accumulate here and there, depending on how heavily I water. But this way the pots aren't sitting in little puddles of water like that. So let's start with a couple of tiger bark ficus. First thing you'll probably notice is that big, awkward, goofy branch back there. That's a sacrificial branch. It's not very sightly. It takes away a lot, but that's okay. It's doing the job that I want it to do, which is I want it to thicken up the base. So try to imagine it without that. You can kind of tell. If you're really looking for it, you can kind of tell where it's thickening it up down there. When it's all said and done, it should be, in theory, it should be much thicker down below that branch, and which will give it good taper. You can kind of see it a little bit. It's got some battle scars. I've done some major corrections to this over the past year, year and a half. Had a lot of reverse taper, still has some reverse taper. You'll see some various scars here and there. It has back budded, which will help. I'm not sure how much longer I can take that sacrificial branch. I need to give it another year, maybe 2 years to really make a solid difference, but man, it's not very pretty. And this is the other tiger bark ficus. Those two are kind of companions. I call them Benny and June. This one's June. This one, as you can see, has got the S shape going. June loves to back bud in all the wrong places. So I've also done a lot of corrections here. I've done some videos on each of these where I made major cuts. So there's a good example of what I mean. She just loves to pop out branches where she shouldn't. So now I try to catch them early on so I can get rid of them before they cause a big reverse taper problem. I've had this tree for about 5 or 6 years. The other one about a year or two more. And I've been slowly working on the structure ever since. There's some of her wounds and battle scars from major corrections done. I'd say they're both off to a good start. Not, where I want them to be yet, but we're getting there. If you go back and watch earlier videos on this, you'll see rather than 3 main branches up top, you'll see like 5 or 6. Here's a handful of Ficus benjaminas, which maybe aren't that spectacular, but they're noteworthy. See, I made it a little crutch there with wires. This was the top of another Ficus benjamina, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. And this one is just a different style. I've got so many Ficus and Ficus benjamina in particular that I just experiment and do different styles with them. This one's kind of just a tall, elegant style. What I'm trying to get it to do in this little shallow pot is get the base to flare out. This is my question mark Ficus benjamina, because it looks like a question mark. I just trimmed it the other day, so it looks a little scraggly right now, but it'll get there. Once it starts to mature, that shape will look better, less pronounced and a little more natural. And then here's yet another style. This one's a little more subtle, but it's got some good trunk movement. And this is the one where I cut the top off, and the one from a second ago in that red pot. That's where that one came from. Needs a little trim. Most of these I have not done videos on. A lot of the trees that I'm going to show today I haven't done full videos on. I'm just doing kind of an intro. Now it's got some scars there, as you can see. So these are all still pretty young and in development, and just kind of taking note and showing you what I got going on. Let's look at some other species. I've got a couple of lemon trees. I just grew these from a seed, from a lemon that I bought one day. This one wasn't doing so great, but it bounced back. I've noticed with both of my lemon trees that they're kind of temperamental in a way. They're both tough and sensitive at the same time. Tough in the sense that they bounce back, even when you think they're a goner. Sensitive in the sense that if you trim it at the wrong time, it gets really mopey. I need to do a little wiring on this one. And this is my other one. Kind of a mess at the moment. You'll probably notice right off a difference there. See the difference in leaf color? Sorry for the blur. Old leaves versus new leaves. They seem to really thrive when you prune the old leaves. When you leave those old leaves on, they kind of just stop growing and they just stay in a certain state for a long time. But if you get rid of the old leaves, they respond really well. That one sort of got away from me and got a little messy. I'm just getting rid of a couple leaves while I'm looking at it. What's cool about lemon trees is when you prune a leaf and then you smell it, it smells like a lemon. No joke. Got a little dieback there on that branch, probably because it was shaded out entirely from all those leaves. I've yet to ever do a full video on these lemon trees, but that day is coming. Got lots of little clips and whatnot that I can string together when the time comes. I think I started these probably 5 years ago. What do all these ficus have in common, you might ask? The answer is that they're all from the same tree, that one right there. That's the one I refer to as my work bonsai because I had it in my work office for a long time. Got lots of videos out there on this. And the three in the back are all cuttings and air layers from that one. This one's in an interesting state right now. I've really reduced the height quite a bit. And as a result, it kind of looks bigger or thicker. Just from the contrast, because it's so short, by contrast it makes the trunk look thicker. It's only about the thickness of my thumb. As you can see. But if it were 4 times taller, it wouldn't look that thick. It would look skinny. This is the top that I air layered off of the work bonsai, right there. I did that just earlier this year. See, it used to look like that. And now I'm thinking about doing it again. I'm thinking about air layering the top of this one off. And just keeping that bottom branch as the new leader. I haven't trimmed this at all since first taking the air layer. At least not that I can remember. Sometimes over the summer, you just do a lot of maintenance and you kind of trim something up without putting much thought into it. But yeah, I'm thinking about cutting it right there. Doing an air layer from the top. And then maybe again after that. And I'll just see how many times I can air layer the top off of the same tree. This is a cutting from it from about 3 or 4 years ago. And honestly, it's not that interesting, probably from most people's perspective, but for whatever reason, I just remembered its history, and it's got kind of a weird little personality the way it's growing, so I dig it. But objectively speaking, I would say it's nothing to write home about. Here's another cutting. This one I'm getting ready to do a big height reduction. I'm not going to bother air layering it. I'm just going to cut it right above that first branch. Somewhere in there. Probably right there. It'll look a lot better after that. Let's look at some more tiger bark ficus. This is one I've had for 5 or 6 years that I've never done a dedicated video on, but we're getting close to the point where I probably should. I've just been working on the structure of it. Occasionally I'll just let it grow completely wild and then just hack it way back. And it just started as a cutting. like most of those tiger bark ficuses. In fact, all of my tiger bark ficuses were started as cuttings from either Benny or June. This one needs some wiring and some pruning. It's got that big scar right there where I did a trunk chop at some point. But I think it's got a good future. Great potential. But it does need a little maintenance. I like tiger bark ficuses a lot. In some ways, they're better than Ficus benjaminas. Here's just a little guy that I decided to wire up and bend all around just for fun to see what happens. Yeah, tiger bark ficuses are tough. You can defoliate them, unlike Ficus benjamina. I'm thinking about doing kind of a smaller, like almost a mame style. I don't know if it might be too big for that. It's got some great potential. I think I need to wire up the branch on the left. It's a little too straight out. Or maybe just lose it altogether. I'm not sure. I haven't quite decided. As I'm looking at now, I think losing that branch, that straight branch there, might be the way to go. Unless I can give it a little movement and some style. Let's talk about willow leaf ficus for a minute. This is one I call Stumpy, but I won't tell you why. You just gotta figure it out. It looks like a stump. This is my main willow leaf ficus right here. Did a video on this over the summer where I thought for sure I saw a UFO and I got it on the video. After editing the video, I realized it was just a balloon, not a UFO at all. It's got some problems. It looks cool. It really does. It's got this globe shape. I get a lot of comments and compliments on this tree. But the problems are there, which I'll show you. When you take a closer look inside, you can see. Look at that. Like 10 branches coming out of one spot and like 10 branches coming out of another spot. Haven't figured out a plan to attack. I know it needs to be hacked way back to fix that. I just haven't come up with a plan yet. Been kicking that can down the road for about 4 years. I got that tree for $25, by the way, back in 2020. This is a cutting from that. And this is another cutting, which I'm just kind of comparing the difference. The one on the right is about 3 years old. One on the left is about 1.5 years, 2 years old. Kind of interesting. They can be different colors and everything. The one on the right is very green. This one I did a repot and a trim on over the summer. Kind of late summer too, I think. So that's, I think, why the leaves are slightly different colors, because they're younger leaves. These willow leaf ficus love to back bud, and they love to back bud all over the place, as you can see. I'm trying to stay on top of it to avoid any major problems. This is just a little guy, but I like it. It's got some problems. I don't really like the way the branch comes out and immediately goes off to the right. It looks weird. Almost like arms crossed or something is what it reminds me of. This one is a clump style, which is not a cutting. I bought it separately. I did another time. Clump styles are kind of interesting. This one's interesting to me, at least. It doesn't get a lot of compliments, but I find it interesting. I think it has a great potential future, but these clump styles are harder to maintain than you would think. In some ways, they're easy to start because you just stick a bunch of cuttings together and they turn into a clump. But getting them to all fan outward is trickier than you'd think. I wired it and unwired it several times. So it's a lot more maintenance and hands-on. And here's one last look at that cutting. Super dense and thick, and haven't even thought of a plan for it yet. Just kind of a cutting that I sort of didn't pay attention to, and then it turned into something potentially cool. So we'll see what comes of it. So let's shift over to Schefflera. This is my main Schefflera. I call him Sheffy. It's doing really good. It's happy and healthy. Its main feature, as you can see there, are these aerial roots that are coming out of everywhere. Done several videos on this to kind of show some progression, but this one gets a lot of comments and gets a lot of love from anybody who is into Scheffleras. As you can see, it's just got really unique character. When you look at it face on right there, it almost looks like the alien or something, or the predator. But still working on that, still a work in progress. But it's in good shape right now. Pretty happy with it. This is just a little mini version, kind of a little clump style. It was a big clump at one point, and then I'm not sure what happened, but a lot of it died back, and so I just kind of reduced it down to this little mini clump. It needs some TLC. I gotta trim some of this dead dieback off. But that's what's cool about Scheffleras. I've got another Schefflera that I'll show you. I moved it to my office, but it's my oldest Schefflera. Here it is. Just a little cutaway to my work office here. This was given to me about 8 or 9 years ago as just a plant, just an office plant. And I've been slowly turning it into bonsai ever since. So this is actually my oldest Schefflera. It's got some flaws, like the rest of us. Let's look at some Ficus fusions. We'll start with how they begin. They begin with just a bunch of cuttings wrapped together. And if you've seen any of my other videos on this, you've seen that I wrap them together in a lot of different ways. I've experimented quite a bit. But I have found this plumber's tape to be, so far, it's worked the best. It's got enough stretch that it doesn't cut into the bark, but it still holds them together, as you can see. I think I stuck a couple of cuttings in that last week. Those cuttings didn't make it. But generally, they start off like this, just scraggly, messy, not pretty at all. And that's okay. That's just the beginning stage of a fusion. You just let them grow out, then you hack them way back, let them grow out, hack them way back, and you start to work on the structure a little bit along the way, here and there. And after 2 or 3 years, you might have the beginning of something kind of cool. Adding some wire around the tape helps, but you got to keep your eye on it because it will cut into the bark. Here's one that's about 3 years old that just this summer I turned into, a beginning bonsai. I had been working on the structure long enough to where it didn't look terrible. In fact, it kind of looks cool, I think. Minus the tape and wire. That part kind of doesn't look good, but that's temporary. These won't always be in good enough shape to put in bonsai pots right away. Some take years and years. But you just work on them a little bit at a time. So I'm pretty happy with this one and how it's looking. Still has a ways to go in a lot of areas, like those two dual branches there. But I've been putting more beginner trees into bonsai pots, which I know conventional theory says you shouldn't do that, but I don't care. They look better in bonsai pots, and if I've got so many of them, it's better to look at them in cool pots. Here's one that is not as pretty, but it was in a good enough state that I could put it into a bonsai pot. Here's another. This is probably, I would say, in between the last two. Decent, but not fantastic. But just goes to show, I mean, it doesn't take real long in bonsai terms to get these ficus fusions in a state where they can start to take on a little personality and character. And here's another, smaller one, but still. I've done some videos on best practices for ficus fusion. I would definitely check that out if you get a chance, if you're into that kind of thing. Tips and tricks and all kinds of things. Now let's go downstairs to my home office where I keep a lot of other random plants and trees. Please excuse the mess. This is one of two eucalyptus trees that I have. I bought that for $9 last year. This is a Ficus benjamina. I call him bunchies. He's ugly, but there's a little bit of significance to it. I'm doing an experiment where I'm not trimming it at all. It started as some tiny little cuttings about 1.5 years ago. It's taken all of my self-discipline to not trim it. I'll put a video together on it soon. That is an avocado tree from an avocado seed that I bought at a store. This is my third bush to bonsai. Big old Ficus benjamina there. Just trimmed it up recently, so you see new buds everywhere. These are some just office topiary eugenias. I'd air layered the top of it, and there's the top. I don't know what I'm doing with them yet. I'll figure it out. This is my other eucalyptus tree, smaller of the two. Got that for like $3. Here's a Schefflera clump. My main pomegranate. Did a video on this last week. Did some major trunk chops there. And there's the cuttings. My office is great for trees and cuttings. Lots of indirect light. My window faces west. This is just a Costco tree, just a ginseng ficus. I'm thinking about air layering it right there. It's a ficus, just a banyan ficus tree. Most of these I don't have plans for. I'm just kind of letting them grow and figure something out. Another banyan ficus. Or ficus banyan. And another ficus banyan. So that's a look at all my trees, all my tropicals. Leave me any comments. Please like and subscribe. And thanks for going on this tour with me. Have a good rest of your day.